Chris. Elena Aslanides Candace from Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery, and I have Chris Yurich here from Altman and also a member of the Stark County Suicide Prevention Coalition. Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today and being willing to talk about survivors as you identify as a survivor yourself. We've had, for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, as you know, really just trying to spread the message on suicide prevention, but also as a way to support lost survivors in this journey as well, since we couldn't host our annual walk this year. So I'm just going to open it up and offer you the floor just to feel free to share what you want to share and kind of tell us kind of your journey through losing Stone.
So thank you so much for allowing me this platform to talk about my story. I love to talk about my son, Stone. We lost him in October of 1997. I'm sorry, 2017. I always say that. 2017. We lost him about 3 years ago. There's not a day goes by that you don't remember him, think about him, want him here. But you have to come to terms with he's not going to be here. And so how do you move forward? And for me, moving forward is helping others. It gives me strength. It's a way for me to keep his life and him alive. It's a way to help me heal and really trying to prevent anybody else from going through what our family has gone through and the loss that we've suffered. And so you don't move on, but you do move forward. I will say year one, really, we were in shock and really hadn't come to terms with it. And I really got myself involved in many, many things and probably overdid it, trying just to find some kind of comfort. Year two, you realize you get past all the first anniversaries and his birthday and the holidays, and you think, okay, after that year one, maybe I'll be able to breathe again. And you realize that you can't and you don't. So year two was very difficult for our family and myself. Now we're out of year two and we're into year three, and still doesn't make sense, but maybe a little bit of a breathing room. And again, really being there and helping others really is very healing for me. And again, keeping him alive, keeping his name. And I don't ever want anyone to forget what a beautiful human being he was, and what an impact he had on so many lives in those short 18 years he was here.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I'm curious on, so when you first lost Stone, we've talked a lot in other videos, especially about kind of the response and kind of that reaction. For you and your perspective, was there anything that was helpful that you would say, you know what, this is what I remember, for anybody that's supporting somebody else, or if somebody's going through a loss of their own, here's what I would recommend?
So I read many, many books. I can't even remember the names of the books. Some were comforting, some weren't. Being with my family was very important, but really being around other suicide loss survivors was the most beneficial and the most comforting, even today, with that loss. I don't want to say there's not enough of us. There shouldn't be any of us, but getting into this world, I have met so many lost survivors, and when you are with them, it's a certain, it's just an understanding. You don't have to tell your story because all of our stories are different, but we all are in the same place. and you don't have to explain yourself, and it's just very comforting being with other survivors. So for me at first, I did not join any groups or anything of that nature. But then year 2, I did get into a support group, and it is very beneficial and comforting, just being around those same folks that are dealing with the same loss, same kind of loss.
I think you and I have talked about this before. It's kind of like you really feel like you're in this club that nobody wanted to be a part of, but here you are.
Yeah, and once you're there, and you can almost pick the folks out in a room, or any benefits that I'm involved in now with suicide loss. You can kind of know who those loss survivors are. It's an instant connection and an instant love and understanding. So it's very, I feel, for recovery and help to be around others that have suffered the same loss.
So looking back, because you had mentioned that first year, you really just kind of dug into books and were trying to go through that with your family kind of personally.
Yes.
Looking back now, do you feel like that's kind of where you were and you've accepted that? Do you think that there could have been other things that may have been helpful earlier on?
I definitely feel that I honestly, I don't know. Maybe I can't answer that question. To be honest, that first year was a blur. I mean, I joined the coalition several months after Stone's passing. I read probably 10 books on suicide, the whys of suicide. Just I met many people. I don't know. I think the program that I would love to start is, and I can't remember the name of it, but we went to a seminar. Pardon me?
A lost team.
Yes. I do think that would be very beneficial. You go there, you're there, and you have that information, and you're able to just sit with the people that have recently lost a loved one. And then they would have that information when they would be ready for that to reach out to one of us. I do think that would be very beneficial in this community. You might not be ready for it initially, but eventually, when you're processing and you want to talk, or you want to ask questions, there's nobody better qualified to answer your questions than another loss survivor. Again, everybody's different, and we're all in different situations, but I really would love for us to get to that point where we could have some lost teams in this community.
Yeah. So, I guess I asked that question, but hindsight is always 20/20, and I think it's fascinating as I've talked to various loss survivors that they talk about kind of their own process, and everyone has a different process. And I guess the point that I wanted to make or hope that people know is that everyone's journey through that is different, and that's okay. That you don't have to dive all in and read all the books or attend every support group, because it's really about kind of those basic needs and the functioning. And like you said, that first year, it really was a blur. Is there anything that you think, looking back, to help other survivors, anything that would have been beneficial in that first year to help even just the slightest bit? Is there support from like family or friends, or
I was very lucky. Okay. I have amazing family and amazing, gonna get emotional, friends that wrap their arms around us And for me, my faith, I clung to that, and that got me through. There was a certain individual who is a wonderful, wonderful minister, and he really helped myself get through. I think talking about it with someone is important. For me, I did a lot of journaling. I still do journaling, ideas, things I want to maybe do, feelings I was having. I felt not obligated, but I felt it very important to be there for my husband. And we have 3 other children. And so it was very important for me that Stone being gone was not going to define the rest of our lives. And, our children needed us as well. And so it was very important for me, number one, to find out everything I possibly could, or to get answers, which, now, I know now I'm not going to get those answers, and coming to terms with that, but being very strong and supporting my kids and my husband. We are close, a very close family. We are a blended family, but we are a very close family, and we loved and supported each other through it. So I was very blessed to have family and friends that necessarily didn't understand, but were there for us. Whatever we needed, they provided, and they still do that. And so, again, I was very blessed.
You had mentioned the faith component, and I think that is such a powerful piece of this that sometimes gets forgotten, maybe, if you will. And if you feel like you need to pass on this, feel free to do that. I don't feel like you have to answer this. But when it comes to faith, because I think people turn to faith beforehand when they're maybe struggling with something. But after, especially a suicide loss, I think there's that fear of, how is that looked in the faith community? So what specifically was most helpful to you in turning to faith? I mean, how was that welcoming for you?
To be honest, when we first found out, and we're dealing those first couple of days, in my mind, I thought, if I know he's in heaven, I will somehow get through this, and I will make change. I will change the world to prevent this from happening. And I went to everybody that I knew, faith-based, friends, ministers, and many of them could not answer my question. They simply could not answer the question. I don't know, Chris. I don't know, Chris. And so, and I'll get into a personal story if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So the day we buried Stone, it was a Catholic service, and the priest was amazing, and he answered all of my questions. And he let me know that God was with him when he passed, and he is with him now. And during the service, I closed my eyes and I prayed, please let me know that. And God showed me that grace that day. I saw Stone's face with the most beautiful smile and the light of God on his cheeks. And I was immediately, a feeling came over me that I can't explain. But sitting here talking to you now, I feel it again. It's God's grace, and I know God is with Stone. And he was with him when he took his last breath. And for me, that's all I need. I know I'll see him again, and that gets me through every day. But when I was given that grace by God, I made a commitment to myself, to God, and to Stone that my mission would be to try and do everything I could to prevent this happening from someone else, or to support those who are grieving as I grieve every day. And so it strengthened my faith, and I'm very lucky that I was able to feel that and see that. I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
I apologize for the emotion, but
you do not need to apologize for that. I think it's just real. I think it's important for people to see that. And no matter what you believe in terms of faith, that for those that is important to them, that there is that peace there.
yes.
And I think it's just normal that there's that conflict when it comes to suicide, depending on the religion piece. And many people are conflicted with that.
I guess I would say, and how I wrap my head around it is just like a heart attack or a stroke or a diabetes, chronic illness. The brain is a very important organ, and when it is ill, people act and do things that they normally wouldn't do. And so, unfortunately, Stone had a disease just like cardiac, just like stroke. And so, and this is just my humble opinion, God, it's just like any other medical condition, and He's going to love you just as He does all of us. So, for me, there's no doubt, and that stigma should not be. I'm very, very proud of my son and everything that he did in those 18 years. Yeah. So, yeah, that's it.
I think that's amazing. And I think that right there is just a part of what we're trying to do this month, is about elevating the conversation and really helping people know that it's okay to talk about this, because no one should have to suffer in silence because of all of that stigma that's there and is still there. And so having people like you that are so passionate helps to break through some of that and to let people know it's okay to talk about. On a personal kind of note, I'm really grateful to you. And I tell you this all the time, but for everyone else out there, I'm very grateful to you, because you're coming at this both professionally and personally. All of your work that you're doing at Altman in terms of suicide prevention efforts, but then the work on the coalition and being on our executive committee. And I just can't thank you enough, because you do add that passion and that value. And so I thank you for that.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and I'll do it forever. So thank you for allowing me to be part of it, and really having this time to tell a little bit of his story and why I do what I do.
So in closing, I guess, anything that you would want to share with other people, either supporting others in suicide loss or those that are directly impacted by suicide loss, any tips that you want to say?
Well, I don't, the stigma, don't be ashamed to talk about it. Don't be ashamed to ask questions. Reach out. You are not alone. There are lots of resources to help you and that want to help you. And I would help anyone. I guess that, the stigma is what I want to break through. People that die by suicide are sick and made they didn't even make the choice, but there's nothing to be ashamed about. And so if that's keeping you from seeking help or talking to others, please don't let that be. Reach out. You have nothing to be ashamed about.
Thank you.
Thank you.